Thank you, Jamie, and thank you to all of you for the invitation to join this panel. I think we've heard this afternoon about the costs associated with AMR being in the trillions. We've talked about lives impacted being in the millions, and we've talked about the criticality of getting drugs to the market and getting them to the market in a time frame where we can impact change. So as we think about, and one of the roles that I play within Pfizer is to do the financial modeling associated with the R&D programs that we have within our portfolio. When we look at programs, it takes on average 10 to 15 years to get a drug to market, and on average, it takes 50 compounds in discovery to get to one launched product at the end. And so when we're talking about investing in R&D today and getting drugs to the market, we're talking about 15 years of investment that is required in order to have the chance to get potentially one drug to the market at the end of those 15 years. So as we do financial modeling, as we think about our investments, and as we think about how to deploy our R&D capabilities, our R&D resources, our R&D dollars, and do so in a way where we can have the greatest impact, oftentimes we look at what is the return on that investment, what is the return that we can generate, and how can we impact patient lives in the most positive way that we can. As we think about what that means for antibiotics, a lot of times that return is uncertain. We've heard today about the need for stewardship and the criticality of reserving drugs for uses on an as-needed basis. In the opening remarks today, Larry Summers mentioned about the standby drugs, how there's no commercial value to the drugs that are the most powerful drugs, and that we keep them in reserve until they're critically needed. And when they are critically needed, that we would be unable to command a price that would be equivalent to the value that they would generate. So as we think about the R&D budgets and the R&D investments and how do we think about the patients, for us, it's about how do we do so in a way that's fiscally responsible, where we can impact change. And so, as Paul mentioned, it's about thinking through the economics in a way where we can model in and we can have certainty around revenues or certainty around a return on that investment of those 15 years in a way that isn't linked to usage of antibiotics, to the question that was raised earlier today, and in a way that is it's a significant amount, and it is also, I guess, in some ways reliable, because as we think about those 15 years, it's important for us to be able to say at the end that we were able to get a return. Now, within Pfizer, we have multiple aspects of how we think about AMR, and obviously stewardship is the greatest in terms of how are we using the antibiotics that we have today, and doing so in a way that preserves their potential impact until we get new drugs to market. It's around surveillance to say, what are the resistance patterns that we're seeing? Where do we see the potential for impact? It's around thinking through the regulatory framework and having an opportunity to influence how we think about getting drugs to the marketplace. It's thinking through manufacturing, as well as new opportunities to identify ways to treat bacterial infections, such as with vaccines in the form of prevention. And it's also thinking through R&D incentives to incentivize, to catalyze the research, to catalyze drug discovery, and to identify potential new drugs that will be added to the toolkit, so that as we think about and as we look at the cost associated with AMR, and as we look at the opportunities that we see in the marketplace, and as we look at the opportunities to help patients, that we do so in a way that catalyzes and rewards that investment for companies or for any type of research players to be able to invest and to spend the research dollars and their time and their effort in a way that is meaningful. And so it's thinking through a lot of these strategic trade-offs and implications, doing so in a time and a place where many of us are constrained as far as our R&D budgets, we're constrained in terms of the time and the resources that we have. And even as Peter had mentioned to open the discussion, it's about thinking through how is it that we can have the greatest impact and do so in a way that is meaningful and do so in a way that goes across and spans different therapeutic categories and find a place where antibiotic research has a place in that future R&D model. Thank you.